If you can hear this, you are not alone. This is Mason Ward, Field Communications Technician, currently at Eureka Weather Station on Ellesmere Island, Nunavut, Canada, right off Slidre Fjord, about as far north as you can live without switching to Antarctica. I am broadcasting on high frequency, using a roof dipole that I rehung with cold stiff cokes and a prayer, cycling through 7.10 MHz, 5.330 MHz, and 3.58 MHz depending on ionospheric mood swings. The station generator is a diesel set adapted for aviation fuel with anti-gel additive. The heat is reliable when I let it be, and the wind is constant even when it sounds like silence. If you know my voice, you probably worked weather with me, or you came through on resupply in spring. If you don't, then here is what matters. I am alive. It is below zero, and much colder with the wind. The sky tonight is a torn sheet of green light, and I am trying to make contact with anyone still breathing between Alert, Resolute, Thule, and farther south where the cities used to glow. I will speak steady and not waste your time. I will not use words that turn search filters against you. I will give you facts, places, simple instructions when I have them, and I will keep my fear behind the meter glass. If you want to answer, wait for my call sign and reply in a calm voice. If you are not on voice, tap once for yes, twice for no. I will hear you. My name again is Mason. I am 37. I grew up in Whitehorse, Yukon, learned radios from a ham operator who taught me to solder on his kitchen table, spent a few years with civil aviation, and signed on, as a contractor, to keep the comms racks at high-lat stations alive through winters. Most people only see on maps. The last scheduled flight out of Eureka was months ago. The last clean voice I heard on official channels came from a Canadian Forces relay near Iqaluit asking any northern facility to report headcount and fuel. The message did not repeat. If you are new to this frequency, I will recap the beginning as I experienced it, because it helps me keep the timeline honest. The first hint was not a headline. It was missing weather reports from stations that never miss. Baker Lake dropped off, then a gap from Cambridge Bay. I called friends in Yellowknife for a sanity check and got a busy tone that lasted 3 days. At first we called it a fiber cut. Then it was 2 cuts. Then a gateway outage. Then the night the sat phone would not lock, no matter how long I stood on the ice with my hood pushed back and the horizon frozen flat. When the official bulletins did arrive, they were dense and careful. A respiratory syndrome in several cities. Behavioral changes in patients under stress. Temporary civic restrictions. I passed the text to the 2 other staff who were still here. A meteorological observer named Chris from Halifax, and a mechanic named Alina who could rebuild a generator from parts and calm me down by handing me a wrench. We agreed to pause our normal maintenance schedule, top off the backup tanks, and run a daily comms watch every hour on the half hour. I started logging everything. The first direct call for help we heard came from a small port farther south, voices clipped by wind, asking for any road north to be kept clear for a convoy from Churchill. The road was never clear. The road is tundra and drift, and it was winter holding on by its teeth. 2 days later, the same voice whispered that the convoy turned back. The third day, nothing. If you are listening from anywhere in Greenland, from Station Nord to Thule, you should know that on the 4th week, voices from the Thule area switched to a local-only loop. It listed shelters and building numbers and told people to stay inside and conserve. The loop ran for a day and then cut to carrier. I tried not to imagine why. I failed at that. Here at Eureka, we are positioned in a sort of pit called a frost hollow. The wind claws at the roofs and funnels past the drums. There are fuel tanks chained like stubborn cows against the ground. On a normal day in a normal year, we do radiosonde launches at set hours and take upper air readings that help planes fly and ships plan. This winter bled into spring, and we launched only 3 balloons because helium is finite, and the skies did not need our numbers anymore. You who ask the obvious question, yes, the infected come north, not like summer tourists with backpacks and cameras, but they come. Where roads touch the Arctic, where airstrips link ballpoint dots on a white map, where a community had a clinic and a store, and then had neither. Cold does not cure anything. It slows. It stalls. It buys time. Inside closed spaces, the slowing stops. That is the rule I keep in my head when I check buildings. I will pause for ID. This is Mason at Eureka Weather Station, transmitting near 7.10 megahertz with a manual antenna tuner and a heater that ticks like dice in a jar. If you need something, say your need plainly. Water, heat, shelter, medicine, directions. I can help with directions. I walk you through a typical day because structure is one tool I still own. I wake before the generator drops to idle at night switch. I listen to the building settle. I check the carbon monoxide monitor, even though I wired it myself. I pull on boots that never fully dry. I step into an air temperature that would freeze a cup of water before you finish saying the word cup. I check the generator and feel the lines for trouble with my gloved hand, because your glove can tell you things your eyes cannot when your breath fogs your glasses. I add anti-gel when needed. I bleed the line if it coughs. I crack the small valve we installed after the first time ice built a plug. I record fuel levels because numbers make me braver. Then I go to the radio room and mark a weather sheet, even if no one reads it. Air pressure, wind direction, wind speed, temperature in Fahrenheit and Celsius. For whatever network still tapes these transmissions to a server somewhere warmer. I watch the aurora forecast and the D-layer absorption notes like an old fisherman watching a barometer. On good mornings, the band opens, and I can hear faint voices from amateurs south of the tree line trying to form nets that always dissolve into people searching for other people by name. On bad mornings, the only sound is a fast hiss that feels like static and grief braided together. Before all this, when I first wintered, I thought of polar bears the way Southern friends thought of thunderstorms, a risk to respect. We carried flares for warning and a bolt-action rifle in .308 with soft-point rounds for last resort. After the outbreak, I did not stop respecting bears, but I stopped thinking they were the most unpredictable thing on the ice. Bears have habits. The infected are just movement, like the wind, except the wind does not try to get inside. A week after the loop from Thule went dark, we had our first visitor that was not a fox or a shadow. It was late afternoon light, the kind that never goes fully away at this latitude even before the real polar day, and Alina spotted a snow machine half buried beyond the drums. She called me on the handheld and I came with a flare ready because habits do not argue back. The rider had left the machine and started toward the buildings on foot, slow, not from the condition, but from exhaustion. We met him at the loading bay, with the wind in our faces. His name was Krister. He was Greenlandic, from a small settlement on the east coast. He said boat, then storm, then coast no more safe. He said friends took a machine west, and he followed the tracks until the tracks were gone. He was hungry and dehydrated, and one of his cheeks had a frost mark that would peel in a day. We brought him inside. I will keep this part simple because I promised not to make your mind carry more than it needs. Krister stayed 2 days. He slept in the bunk room that smells like wet wool and old coffee. He told us that some of the infected on the coast simply walked into the water with tide and never came back. He said the ones who remained stayed near buildings because of heat and because doors meant sound. He asked to borrow the snow machine and head north for Alert, where he heard there were uniforms and a runway and a stronger loop than Thule. We told him we had not heard a clean voice from Alert in 2 weeks, only a beacon. He nodded like a man nods when a thing is already inside his decision and he is only being polite. On the morning he left, he stood by the bay door with a thermos and looked at the sky like it had words written across it. He thanked us in careful English and a few words of Inuktitut I remembered from a different year. We watched him pull away, the machine coughing once before smoothing out. We tracked him with binoculars until he was a dot. That afternoon, I turned the antenna a few degrees and called on 5.330 megahertz every half hour for 6 hours in case he needed a voice to push against. No reply. If you are listening from Alert, if you have any record of a single rider arriving from the west on a battered sled with a scarf patterned like sea ice, please mark that down on paper somewhere. Paper lasts longer than batteries. Consider this my message to him across distance. I will give you practical notes because practical notes save lives even when stories do not. Fuel thickens in cold. Use additives if you have them. If not, keep small containers inside your living space so you can swap and warm in rotation. If your generator is losing power, it might be ice in the line or a filter clogged with wax. A heated space to change filters is a luxury. Failing that, a tarp and a candle make a difference you can measure with your fingers. Water is not snow. Snow is air with an opinion. If you melt snow for water, pack it tight in a pot, or you will burn fuel to make steam and not much else. If you have a creek or a tide crack, even ice blocks are better. If you can, run a simple filter with cloth and sand and then boil. This is the part where most broadcasts would play music. I do not have the rights or the gear, and anyway, the wind is its own chorus up here. So, I will read you the log of a maintenance day, not because you care about my bolts, but because details keep you company. Maintenance day 31 since the first missed weather report. Morning temp, -12 Fahrenheit outside, -24 Celsius. Winds from the northeast pushing hard. Sky bright. Aurora remnants above like green chalk. Check generator on preheat cycle, bled line at the petcock until the cough eased. Replaced cracked hose clamp with an extra from the workshop and a strip of aluminum can to shim. Logged fuel at 3 drums and a quarter. Moved 2 drums with the handcart. Slow over ice. 1 skid at a time. Because breaking a wrist here is another word for final. In the comms room, retuned the tuner for the higher band because mid-morning has been better lately. Sent a plain language weather summary on the hour. Heard a station in Iceland for 3 minutes. Weak but steady. A man who said his wife was a nurse and he was keeping generators on in a clinic with 2 floors. I gave him this frequency and the times I would listen. He thanked me and the band slid shut. Afternoon, Alina took the tracked loader and pushed a new path toward the drum stack that drifts had eaten. She listens to old audio on a small player when she works. Not music, but people talking about repairing ordinary things. Once she came in laughing. Said the man in the recording was angry at a screw because his drill was dull and he was hungry. She said she understood him deeply. Evening. Chris and I took a long look south with the spotting scope from the highest roof. There is a point about a mile away where the snow makes a kind of wave that tricks your eye into seeing movement. We have learned to ignore it. Not everything that feels like a warning is one. Not everything that is a warning raises its voice. 2 nights after Krister left, we had a false comfort that tasted real. The power was steady. The heat was steady. The radio had given me a voice from Iceland and a weather net from somewhere around Fairbanks that spoke like a well-run ship. I went to bed and slept too hard. When the knock came at the bay door, it was so gentle I thought it was a trick of the ductwork. Then it came again, like someone who does not want to wake a sleeping house but wants it very much. We used the camera first. The feed showed a man in a parka with no gloves, hands red with cold that hadn't broken skin yet. He had a backpack made of an old hiking frame and rope. He knocked again. I looked at Alina. She nodded. Because if we were in his place, we would want a nod. We opened the inner door, and the man came into the vestibule with his breath racing. We asked him to show us his hands and face. His eyes were clear, movements slow, not the strange hurry we had seen once already in a different visitor who had to be turned away for his sake and ours. His name was Owen. He was a weather tech from Resolute who had been on leave in Iqaluit when the airport fell quiet. He worked his way north by trading knowledge and labor, joined a group that tried to reach Pond Inlet, and then split when machines broke and people did. He had a laminated map that doubled as windproof paper and more patience than food. We gave him a bunk. We gave him soup and, later, bad tea that tasted like mercy. He asked about the infected. I told him what we knew. Cold slows them. Closed spaces do not. Sound draws like a magnet. Light sometimes does, sometimes does not. He asked if we had seen any near the station. I said yes. I said we barricaded 3 doors in the old storage annex because one evening we watched shapes move inside against the light like moths that had learned to hold a handle. We keep those doors shut and chained. We do not go in. If we need something from inside, we decide if we truly need it. Owen had worked HF before. He took a watch with me that first night, and we got a clean hit from unraveling for about 5 minutes. A woman speaking with a calm cadence, counting supplies and people, in a way that told me she had done both more times than she wanted. She said a group left by boat toward Tromsø and did not report in. She said she would keep the lighthouse lit as long as the diesel and the glass held. I told her I would listen on the 10s. The band closed, like someone taking a door between us and setting it gently down. If you are in unraveling and you hear me, please know you were the first voice in days that sounded like a plan and not a prayer. Hold on to that. The question I get most, when the bands are good and people can actually shape questions through the hash, is how we stay warm. The same way you do anywhere the air wants your heat. Layers. Dry socks before pride. A schedule. If the generator fails, we have a backup heater and, beyond that, a way to section off rooms with plastic and blankets to make small warm cores. If you are in a house, pick one room and make it your winter den. Hang quilts over doors. Close vents you do not need. Sleep in shifts so someone can tend flame or fuel without the panic of waking from cold at the edge. I promise to keep it real, so I will not pretend we are brave all the time. 2 weeks ago, after a day where the wind never dipped below a scream and the sky stayed blank steel, we argued. It was not about policy. It was about a spoon that went missing, and the way someone hummed while walking, and the way the hallway light flickered because the ballast is dying. The argument swelled like soup left too long, and I said a thing that tasted bitter even as I spoke it. Then I went to the radio room and read the log out loud to no one until the bitterness thinned. Later, we apologized. We are trying to hold on to a version of ourselves we would not be ashamed to meet in a mirror. 3 days later, we found tracks. Not bear, not fox, not the tail drag of an Arctic hare. Boot prints half filled with drift, leading toward the storage annex and away again, disappearing into the scoured open where the wind erases things fast. We followed a little and then stopped, because following tracks in the Arctic sometimes just means writing your own epitaph. We went back, checked the chains on the annex doors, tightened one that had worked loose. That night, I slept in the radio chair. I want to use this moment to tell you about a sound that does not belong to fear, but visits it often. Inside the station, there is a spring under the floor near the battery room. It is just water moving through rock, because geology remembers rivers, even when the surface forgets. At night, when the generator hum turns soft, you can hear that spring like a throat clearing in the distance. When I cannot sleep, I lie still and let that sound braid with my breath. It is proof of a world still doing what it was built to do. Now, for those who requested routes, if you are at Resolute and you have fuel, you can try for Grise Fjord, only if you have weather knowledge and a good reason. The straight ice can be deceptive this late, and the leads can look like pavement until you are in them. If you are at Arctic Bay, the road to the airport is short but often drifts in a way that hides hard ice under soft snow. If you are at Pond Inlet, stay off the spit when the wind is from the north. If you are in Greenland on the east coast, keep watch in the late afternoon when the shadows make distances lie. Carry a pole and probe ahead. We had a rare clear contact today from a man in Tromsø speaking a mix of English and Norwegian, asking about ice conditions off Svalbard. He was with a small group on a fishing vessel that had been a home and a workbench for months. He said the diesel was holding and the nets were useless now, but the lines still pulled fish enough for strength. He wanted to anchor near a fjord where he knew there was a small dock and a warehouse. I told him to watch for movement inside the building at night. He asked how far the voices carry over water at this temperature. I said far enough to make you think company is near when it is not, and sometimes not far enough when you need help. If you are that man and you hear this, keep the wheel steady and do not let the cold convince you to save fuel by shutting down when you anchor. A hard start in this weather takes more than a slow idle costs. There are questions I will not answer on air, because some information is better held back for safety. I will not read exact fuel counts again. I will not list all our tools. I will not describe our locks. If that disappoints you, remember that radios turn one voice into a room full of listeners, and I do not know all of their intentions. What I will give freely: the sky. Tonight the aurora started low and then stacked up like a city turned vertical. Green first, then a soft edge of purple that stayed like a bruise before it faded. Sometimes I think of the people who still have power in cities and wonder if they look up or if the indoor lights take all their attention. If you are somewhere south where the sky does not do this, imagine a river overhead that chose to keep flowing when your streets froze. To the teacher in Rankin Inlet who came on last week with children in the background and asked what to tell them the names of the birds that will return. Tell them about the sundogs they will see when it gets colder again. Tell them to line their boots at night near the stove so they are not hard in the morning. Tell them you are listening to a man who is also afraid sometimes, and who still believes that schedules matter and that voices can cross distance, like bridges. I will speak about the annex now because I owe the truth its own place in the log. The storage annex is an older building attached by a short corridor that is always colder than it has any reason to be. 3 months ago, before the worst of the silence, we noticed the door from the outside had a scraped spot near the latch, like someone had tried tools without the right size. We reinforced from inside with steel brackets and chain. A week later, we heard a sound from the corridor, like someone breathing through a closed mouth. We checked the camera. Nothing. We stood on either side of the inner door with our backs to the wall and waited. The sound went away. 2 days after that, Alina went in with me to fetch a crate of connectors we needed for the antenna. We moved quietly. We opened one light only. We kept the inner door wedged with a length of pipe so it could not close behind us. We did not go beyond the second aisle. We found what we needed and we left. As we closed up, something moved deeper in the dark, a shape shifting like a person deciding to stand up. We did not wait to see more. Since then, the annex is sealed. If someone listening wants us to be braver, I invite you to visit and show us how. Let me give you a small victory to hold in your pocket. The other night, with the wind calm, I tuned the set to 7.400 megahertz on a whim. The signal was messy and fluttered like paper in a fan, but under it was a man from Anchorage. He was hoarse and steady in the way of someone who has kept watch on long nights. He was packaging food shares from closed restaurants with a handful of others and organizing nightly lights-out hours so their block would not show like a target. He said if anyone could reach the old airport cargo doors, there was a stash of blankets and hand warmers in a metal bin with a broken hinge. He read the coordinates slowly, twice. I wrote them down like a treasure map. I do not know if anyone near him is listening now, but I repeat his offer because gifts move fastest on air. I will mark the time. It is just past 9:00 at night local. I keep using local time because the sun takes its time coming back, and clocks are the one thing we can control. I will stay on this band until the top of the hour, then drop to 5.330 megahertz for 15 minutes, then try 3.58. If you can only send a carrier, do that. If you can only tap the microphone, do that. If you can speak, say your first name, your place, and your need. I will log and respond as long as the generator runs and the room stays warm enough for fingers to move. Owen is asleep now. Chris is on the roof, checking the line we strung to guide us in whiteout. Alina is in the workshop regrinding a chisel on a hand crank because electricity is precious and sparks are not. I am thinking about the names written on a sheet taped near the battery room door. Names of people who checked in once and then never again. I read them like quiet prayers. I do not say out loud. I am thinking about how many times I thought the infected were the problem worth solving. The infected teach their lesson fast. It is the living who write curriculums. To the small boat I heard near Iceland asking whether to hug the coast or aim for open water. Hug the coast when the wind is fair and daylight is on your side. Slip to open water when you need room to turn without seeing rock at the last second. Keep a lookout for things that float wrong. A single door drifting can punch a hole where you do not want one. To the pair in Dawson City who asked if you should shelter in the old theater because the walls are thick, only if you check every room first. Use line of sight and a buddy at the door. Leave a note outside with your names and the date. That way, if you move, your trail is not only footprints and hope. To the person who sent me a short burst from somewhere near Whitehorse that sounded like my father's cough and made my hands shake, I heard you. Please try again on the half hour. If you are a stranger, I will still answer with all the care I have. We had a problem last night with interference that sounded like a child humming into a tin can. It was not the annex. It was not the wind. It was power line noise from our own worn ballast coupling with the antenna through the roof. I fixed it with a ferrite core I pulled from an old monitor cable and a wrap of cloth tape to keep it from rattling. I tell you this because sometimes the monsters are electrical and you can beat them with a ring of magnet and habit. I see the meter rise. Someone is keying. Go ahead. I copy a female voice, weak but there. Say again. Slower. Yes. I hear you. Cambridge Bay. 2 adults, 1 child. Fuel low. Water low. You are in the school. Windows boarded. You can move in daylight, but you do not want to risk it. Understood. I will speak clear. There is a maintenance shed behind the old weather station office near the water tower. In the back right corner, there is a gray metal cabinet with a broken lock. Inside are 2 5-gallon fuel cans that smell like they were cleaned with soap once and never rinsed right. If still there, pour slowly into your main container through cloth. Do not run it pure. Mix it 1 to 3 with better fuel if possible. For water, there is a snow melt barrel behind the gym. It fills with drift that packs hard. Chip with a flat shovel, not a point, to save your wrists. Boil. If the barrel is gone, the culvert a block east sometimes breathes, even in cold. Use a rope. I will stay on this channel for you at the top and bottom of the hour. If you cannot answer, leave the microphone under a blanket to keep it from freezing, and tap once for yes. You are not alone. I need to say something difficult now. Chris is gone. Not gone like the annex. Not gone like a voice on a band that fades. 2 mornings ago, he went out on the roof to check an ice dam that was threatening to tear a gutter free. The line we string for safety had ice smooth overnight, and the knot he trusted did not hold when he leaned into it. He slid, hit the edge, and landed badly. We got to him fast. We brought him inside. We did what we could with splints and blankets, and all the good words we had stored for a day like this. He did not wake. We did not have a doctor. We had a radio that could not move time backward. We wrote his name on the sheet with the others, and then we sat very still for a long time. I tell you this because you need to know that in the north the environment is not the backdrop. It is the story. The infected are real and frightening. Ice, gravity, and cold are also real. Tie good knots. Check them twice. Use a second line if you can. We took turns through that day, keeping the radio live, because silence after loss grows a shape of its own. Owen read weather like a professional. Alina made food none of us tasted. I cleaned the bench 3 times and put my tools in a straight line as if order could climb into the air and fix us. At dusk, though dusk here is a concept, not a time, we heard footsteps on the packed snowpath that goes past the bay. Not the shuffle of someone lost to the condition. A careful set of steps, paused, then another. We went to the camera. A figure in a red parka stood just at the edge of the frame, as if it knew exactly where the camera stopped seeing. It did not move for a full minute. Then it turned, slow, and walked toward the annex door, and stood there, head tilted. It did not try the handle. It did not knock. After a while it walked away, following a line that would take it out toward the frozen fjord. I do not have an explanation that fits in a sentence. Maybe it was someone checking our defenses. Maybe it was a person like us, unsure how to ask for help. Maybe it was the trick of the camera in low light making a shadow into a red coat. I know only that the next morning there were boot prints there that were not ours, and the wind rode over them by noon. I am going to read a list of place names now, to keep them alive for someone who might feel less alone hearing them. Eureka. Alert. Grise Fjord. Resolute. Pond Inlet. Arctic Bay. Iqaluit. Rankin Inlet. Cambridge Bay. Yellowknife. Whitehorse. Longyearbyen. Tromsø. Reykjavik. Anchorage. If you are in any of these, and can answer, even with one tap, I will mark it. For the next 10 minutes, I will hold this frequency for Cambridge Bay and for any vessel near Svalbard making for shelter. After that, I will drop to 5.330 megahertz. If you are trying to find me and you cannot, come back at the top of the next hour and the one after that. I will keep this schedule until our fuel curve tells us to change it. To the person who asked what I miss most that is small, the weight of a normal key on a normal ring, the way it marks your pocket and promises a return. To the person who asked what I am most grateful for, that is small, the thin taste of iron and water from the spring under the floor, because it means the ground still moves, even when everything else feels locked. This is Mason, at Eureka. I am still here. I will be here through the night. If you can hear me, adjust your tuner a little to the left and breathe. Speak plainly. I am listening. I am back on the half hour. Cambridge Bay. If you are there, tap once. Good. I hear you. I will read the route to the maintenance shed again. Move only if the light is clean and the wind is friendly. Take the side door from the gym, cross the short open by the metal pole with the chipped paint. Keep the building wall on your left until you reach the small fence. Then turn right and move along the fence to the shed. If you hear movement inside any building other than your own voices, stop. Return. Nothing inside is worth the risk if you feel that pull in your chest that says this is wrong. I will share a trick for cold radios. Handheld microphones stiffen in low temperatures. If you have no way to warm them and you need to talk, wrap the head in a wool sock, not tight, just enough to keep your breath from freezing the grill. If your push-to-talk sticks, work it gently with a gloved thumb until it answers. If you lose all sound and you know the set is powered, check the connector for frost. A wooden toothpick can save a day. We are doing something now I want to document. Owen and Alina are setting up a dipole extension to see if we can shape the pattern a bit more toward Europe in the late night. It is a small change, a few more feet of wire, and a different angle to the roof ridge. But sometimes small changes make the difference between hearing someone in a kitchen half a world away and hearing only yourself. If you are in Europe and awake, and you hear a station shift slightly, that may be us, reaching. Reach back. The memory that returns to me most often is not dramatic. It is a ferry ramp clanging in Skagway when I was a kid, and my mother holding my shoulder so I did not run to the edge to see the water. She said, "Patience, patience, or you will see only half of things." I think of that when a voice cuts out on the band and I want to blame the air. Patience. The air is not against us. I have to speak of one more thing before I switch bands. There is a rumor that the cold makes the infected stop forever. It does not. It slows them to a crawl outside. It makes their hands stiff and their steps short. But in a room with heat, or even trapped winter sun, they can move, and movement finds doors. Do not test them with your life. Top of the hour. I am moving to 5.330 megahertz for 15 minutes, then 3.58. If you are near Longyearbyen, this may be your best window. If you are in Anchorage, the low band may favor you in an hour. I will return to 7.10 after. Switching now. 5.330 megahertz. This is Mason at Eureka. Checking for Longyearbyen. Checking for Tromsø vessel. Checking for Iceland clinic. I am here. I hear a whisper under the noise. Counting. 1, 2, 3. Yes, I copy you. You are faint. Try again. Longyearbyen confirm. The lighthouse holds. Supplies low. You see a boat at distance with no lights and no sound. You ask if you should signal. Not yet. Wait for daylight. Watch for movement on deck that looks like a loop. The same steps again and again. That can mean no pilot, and something inside still moving. If you decide to board, Take 2. Tie a line and set a watch on shore with a horn. I will be back on this band in 1 hour. Stay cautious. 3.58 megahertz in 10 seconds. Cambridge Bay. If you can only reach low, listen now. 3.58 megahertz. Mason at Eureka. Cambridge Bay. Tap once. Good. You did not move today. That is fine. Do not rush. Tomorrow, if the wind is kind, try the route at midday when shadows are shortest. I will be here. Returning to 7.10 megahertz. The generator just kicked at a note I do not like. I am going to adjust mixture in a moment, but I will finish this segment because you deserve consistency. If I drop, know that I am not far, and I will return. I want to end this hour with something practical and something human. Practical. If you are sealing a window, do not use all your tape today. Cold makes adhesives humble. Save some for when a small fix keeps a big problem small. Human. If you are with someone, tell them one ordinary memory before you sleep. The name of a street where you walked once, the taste of a bakery you liked, the voice of a person who taught you something that still works. Make a catalog of these. You will need them when the generator hiccups and the wind tries to sell you loneliness. This is Mason at Eureka. I am going to step away for 5 minutes to tune the set and calm the generator. I will be back. Keep your eyes open in daylight. Keep your lights low at night. And keep a pencil near your radio so you can write down the pieces that help. I am still here. I am not leaving you. Back on frequency. Generator is steady again. Mixture reset, line bleed completed. New clamp, hand tight, and half turn with the wrench. I am Mason at Eureka Weather Station on Ellesmere Island. You are listening to a live voice. Status first. Cambridge Bay family, you reached the shed. I copy your tap pattern from 10 minutes ago. One long, one short, just like we agreed. That means fuel located and carried. If you can, conserve by rotating a small heater in one room. Keep vents cracked an inch to prevent moisture icing your windows from the inside. I repeat, one room, one warm core. Longyearbyen Lighthouse, you confirmed the silent boat drifted out with the morning tide. No boarding. Good choice. Weather over you shows a weak ridge, but expect gusts above 20 knots by late evening. Secure glass and keep a watch by pairs. Tromsø vessel, I heard your carrier but not your voice. If you can hear me, I am pointing a fraction closer to your bearing at the top of each hour. Keep your set warm if you can. Wrap it in wool to keep condensation off boards. We made a change today that matters. The roof dipole is now slightly longer, hung with a better angle to favor Europe on night paths. Credit to Owen for the math and to Alina for the hands, because hands in the wind earn all the praise. If you noticed a stronger signal on your end, log it. I am going to keep the talk calm and steady, like a hand on a shoulder. We had a hard week. Chris's name is still fresh on the paper and on our tongues. We have work to do that honors him. Fuel inventory. Rum's full, one partial, plus residual in the day tank. Anti-gel stock is low but acceptable for current temps. Grease for the loader is stiff but workable if warm. Food. Beans. Rice. Dry pasta. Canned fish. Powdered milk. Powdered eggs. 2 cases of heat and eat that taste like nothing and everything. Water. Melt from packed blocks. Filtered and boiled. Medical. Small kit. Bandages. Antiseptic. Pain relief in measured doses. Triangle sling. Splints. And a manual with diagrams that speak like a firm teacher. We are not a clinic. We are 3 people who can read and do what we are told by a page. A word about the condition for anyone new. This is a general warning from the north, not a study. Cold slows it. Periods of bright light confuse some, not all. Sound pulls. Closed spaces erase the advantages of cold. Heat wakes what cold paused. Never assume outside rules apply inside a room with sun-warmed glass. I want to log an event from the past 24 hours, because stories teach faster than lists. We took the loader to clear a drift that had swallowed the walkway between the main building and the generator shed. That walkway looks like a trench in a bad photograph of a better time. The loader engine protested, then settled. I walked ahead with a probe and a line, because crust looks like stone until it is a mouth. Midway, I found a thin cover over a shallow void, an old snow bridge near a ventilation outflow. We marked it with poles and flagged it so no one would step there with a heavy load. A simple thing. A saved ankle. The North pays you back for simple things. Now I will open the log to calls. This frequency stands for 10 minutes to hear those waiting. If you are new, say name, place, need. If you are returning, use our agreed codes and keep it short. Copy a faint voice. Say again. Slower. Yes. I hear a woman. White Horse outskirts. You are in a single-floor house with a wood stove and a cracked chimney cap. You ask if you can improvise a cap. Yes. Use sheet metal if you have it, even from a baking pan, and wire it to the flue collar with a gap for draft. Do not overseal. A spark screen is better if you have mesh. If not, a suspended pot filled with sand above the stove can absorb stray ash. Keep a bucket of water and a blanket handy. Stack wood in a dry corner, not against the stove wall. Sleep in shifts the first night to watch for smoke creep. Copy a tap series from Dawson City. We agreed 3 short means you move to the theater. I will send the checklist. Clear entry. Clear exit. Sweep each room with 2 people, one at the threshold facing in, one inside facing out. Check behind curtains, under seats, in bathrooms. Block doors to spaces you will not use with furniture, and visible signs, so you do not accidentally enter in a rush. Leave a note outside with date, names, and an arrow to the room you chose. I will fill the quiet between calls with the weather. Pressure rising slowly. Wind east-northeast, gusting then falling, like a conversation where someone gets tired. Temperatures are in a range where exposed skin complains in minutes. Expect drift formation along any fence or wall that breaks the wind. If you have a fence, shovel a ramp instead of a cliff. Cliffs collapse and trap the next person. The annex remained closed. I hear the question without hearing the question. No, we have not opened it. Yes, the chain held. The camera sees nothing but a rectangle of dark. We keep the light off. A light in a place like that is not a tool. It is an invitation for the part of your mind that wants to solve mysteries. We do not accept that invitation. At midday, we tried a new contact protocol for distant stations. 15 seconds of carrier, 5 seconds of silence, then name and place twice. It worked well on the Iceland path. In a skip, voice can ride noise if you give it rhythm. Copy a child's voice behind a woman near Cambridge Bay. Hello there. I hear you. The person on the radio is Mason. Yes, like the brick job. I am a person who talks to other people and helps with directions. You can draw me a map with a pencil and it will help you remember the way you walked. Keep that drawing in your pocket. If you get scared, put your hand on it. That is your small map of Brave. I am going to take a minute to speak to those working near coasts. Sea ice at this latitude can look solid when it is a patchwork. Leads can open and close with tide, even in weather that feels frozen. If you must cross, use a long pole to probe and wear a loose belt with a light line tied to a partner. If one goes through, the other plants and pulls. Do not run. Running is a promise to the water. We attempted contact with alert at scheduled times today. Still only a beacon. The tone is steady, no voice. It could be an unattended transmitter on loop power. It could be a person without a mic. It could be the sound of a door that has not been opened in a long time. Krister, if you reached alert, and you can hear this, strike metal on metal 3 times at the top of the hour. We will listen. I will log a difficult choice we made this afternoon. We reduced overnight radio hours to save fuel. That means fewer calls in the darkest hours, but more days total on air. I do not like the trade. I accept it. Practical segment, HM. Food and heat without a full kitchen. Stack smooth rocks around a stove to bank warmth, but never seal the stove with stones. Heat water before food to keep dehydration from creeping up on you. If you have only snow, pack it tight in the pot to save fuel. Add a pinch of clean ash to help it melt faster. It improves absorption of sunlight if you set the pot near glass. Clean the pot after. I hear a question about bears. Yes, they are near sometimes. We keep flares by doors and an air horn on a nail. Noise is the first tool. If you must, last resort is a bolt action in 308. Soft point rounds to discourage rather than carry far. Aim to end the encounter, not to tell a story later. Respect the animal. We took a walk at low wind to check the line to the bay. The trail marker poles are our alphabet written across snow. At pole D, we found a scrap of red cloth frozen into the crust, torn at one edge, not ours. We collected it and logged it. We did not follow any farther. Evening chores. Strainers cleared. Exhaust checked. Belt tension adjusted on the generator because a cold belt lies about its length. In the shop, Alina repaired a cracked plastic fuel funnel with a strip of aluminum and rivets, then sealed the seam with high-temp gasket maker. It looks ugly. It works perfectly. Owen copied a net from Northern Europe with stations checking on elderly neighbors house by house. One caller had the calm voice of a person who has done volunteer work in storms. He listed flats by floor and asked for any sign in windows. A towel, a light, a note. We relayed back the times we would listen. He thanked us and said thank you again as if he knew the air could eat words if you do not feed it. I am going to put words to a thing many of you have asked indirectly. The annex. A building you do not enter becomes a story you tell yourself. Stories can create pressure. Pressure can create mistakes. We are going to address the annex safely and in steps. Tomorrow at midday, we will open the corridor door just enough to check the first aisle with a mirror on a pole. We will not cross the threshold. We will not turn on the main light. We will use a shielded flashlight with a narrow beam. If there is movement, we will seal and retreat. If there is no movement, we will still seal and retreat. Then we will decide. Cambridge Bay family, top of the hour. Tap if you can. Good. You have fuel and you are resting. I will be here again in 1 hour. Long year bien. I hear your voice stronger. That means the antenna change is doing its small work. You have enough diesel for 3 nights at reduced load. You found canned goods in a storage locker that must have belonged to a hiking club. Check dates, but do not fear a reasonable date if the cans are intact and the tops are not swollen. Boil contents if possible. I hear anchorage again through flutter. The cargo door stash is there. Someone used it. Good. You are moving supplies by sled at night to avoid attention. Keep 2 people per sled. Use a tarp over the load to keep silhouettes low. Night at Eureka is a long gray pause this time of year. The sky does a slow-motion show that feels like luck. Sometimes I stand in the vestibule with the inner door open and watch frost breathe from the edges like the building itself is alive. I think of the spring under the floor and let that sound memorize me. We started the annex check at midday as planned. Step 1. I announced on air that we would be away from the mic for 15 minutes. Step 2. We set our line on the corridor, clipped in, and placed a chalk so the door could not close. Step 3. Mirror on pole at ankle height first, then knee, then chest, then head. Step 4. Narrow beam across the first aisle only, aimed low, then at boxes, then at ceiling space, where pipes run. No movement. No sound except the soft tick of cooling metal. Step 5. Retreat, reseal, and breathe with our backs against a wall that has never moved. I would like to tell you we felt brave after. We felt sensible. Sensible is enough. On our return to the radio room, we found a message pencil scratched on the pad near the mic in a hand that was not mine. It read, "Kept the schedule. Heard Longyearbyen. Heard Anchorage. Back soon." It was Owen's hand. He had stopped by as planned, just quicker than we expected, to log while we were in the corridor. Small proof that our system works, even when our nerves argue. Afternoon contact. A Norwegian voice near Hammerfest, asking about engine de-icing on a small boat. Wrap with cloth. Use gentle heat, not open flame. Warm fuel line with a hand if you must. Trade hands often. Do not rush. If you have access to a kettle, steam can be your best friend, with patience. He thanked us, and the signal faded like a person rounding a corner you cannot see around. On the topic of patience, it is not passive. Up here, patience is a tool. It keeps you from stepping through a snow bridge. It keeps you from opening a door because a mystery itches in your head. It keeps you from using all your fuel in one warm night instead of 3 survivable ones. We took a moment at sunset to speak about Chris in a way that was more than a list of tasks. Owen had a story about him trying to fix a wind vane with mittens and laughing at his own clumsy fingers. Alina remembered a day when the loader belt jumped a groove, and Chris named the belt like a stubborn mule and coaxed it back with praise. I remembered how he checked the carbon monoxide monitor every time he walked past it, even if he had checked it 10 minutes before. We agreed to keep that habit. A contact from Reykjavik came thin as a whisper line. The caller ran a small net for apartment blocks sharing stairwells. He asked for advice on hallway lighting. Motion sensors will give you away if the wrong motion happens. Choose steady low light during hours of safe movement, and full dark during rest if possible. Use covered lights to reduce spill on windows. I want to answer a question about batteries. We maintain lead-acid units for the radio room. Cold reduces capacity. Keep them off the floor and wrapped. Ventilate if you charge in a closed space. If you have lithium packs, keep them near warmth, but not hot. Warm them gently before use in cold, and they will give you a little more life. We heard something tonight that felt like hope wearing gloves. A faint voice from Thule, not the loop, an actual voice over it, counting. 2, 4, 6, 8. The cadence of a check. We called back with our call sign and location. The voice did not respond, but the counting stopped on 8 and did not resume. If that was a person checking for an open receiver, we heard you. Now I am going to read a different kind of list. Not names. Things that are enough. A warm cup held in both hands. Socks changed at the right time. A window sealed against a draft with tape that will fail later and can be fixed later. A line tied between doors. A plan written on paper. A pencil hammered flat to make a screwdriver that works once. We had an intrusion alarm from the bay door at 3 a.m. False. Wind kicking the latch. Then quiet. Still, we treated it as real. This matters. Treat false alarms as drills. The night you do not is the night the world decides it needed you ready. I hear our Anchorage friend again. He says the block has a new rule. No one goes alone, even to the end of the street. He says a neighbor left a box of hand warmers with a note that read, "Share by need, not by want." If you hear this, neighbor, I am adding you to my private catalog of the living, who remind me what living means. Let me speak about navigation in white. White on white makes distance lie. If you do not have poles, use anything that makes a mark. A line of cans, a string of cloth, a trail of small flags cut from bags. Teach your feet to count steps between points. If you feel lost even on a line, stop. Close your eyes for a count of 10. Open them. The world will shift back into place a little. Midday, a message came from a small team near Resolute, trying to reach a cache. They asked for advice on crossing a field of pressure ridges. Go slow at 45 degrees to the lines of ice. Do not force the sled across a ridge face. Unload and hand carry if needed. It feels wasteful. It saves axles and legs. We will speak now about departure, because more than one listener asked if we plan to leave Eureka. Short answer, no, not yet. Long answer, we hold until fuel tells us otherwise, or an event changes the safety balance. The station is a voice for a large empty map and a roof for 3. Leaving would trade a working radio and known shelter for a road of hypotheticals. When we go, it will be because staying is a worse hypothetical. A routine that helps us. End of day check. Each of us says out loud one small thing we did that made tomorrow easier. Replace a battery. Label a drawer. Sharpen a knife. Move a drum. Write a frequency on a card. It keeps despair from pretending to be logic. Now, the annex changed the script. Late afternoon, a sound from the corridor that was not wind, not duct, not our minds. A scuff and a pause. Then the light under the door brightened and dimmed like a shadow passed. We took positions, one on the handle, one on the far wall, one ready to wedge. Silence. We waited. Then a second scuff, lower, as if a knee touched. I felt the weight of every story people tell themselves about unknown rooms. We stepped back together. We did not open. After, we held a short council. Motion passed. We will not open the annex this week. Motion passed. We will set a line on the exterior route and pile snow against the annex outside access as a dead weight. Motion passed. We will move any non-essential gear out of the corridor and keep it bare. I can feel someone south of here shaking a head at our caution. Consider this. Caution is not fear. Caution is math plus experience. Contact window. Europe. Long year BN. Stronger again. You report a new group of 4 on the far side of the harbor moving with care. You used a mirror to flash noon light and got a mirror flash back. You will wait until morning to approach. Good. Oslo suburbs net. You asked about turning a car battery into a lighting bank. Yes, but be careful with wiring and ventilation. Use LED strips, not incandescent bulbs, to stretch power. Fuse each branch with a small inline fuse so a short does not set a room on fire. Keep the battery on a board, not on concrete, and wrap against drafts. An update from Iceland Clinic, ISC. Your nurse made a plan for 3 floors, with 1 closed off, and used as a quarantine for injuries unrelated to the condition. Clear signage is kindness. Make arrows, color code doors, and write the date of the plan at the top of each sign, so future eyes trust it. Anchorage sent a list of porch lights left on at night. They counted, knocked, checked, and turned off the lights where no one answered. It saved their block enough power to run a small heater for an elderly neighbor. The math of care. I'm going to speak quietly about grief, because it walks through these rooms like a draft. Grief is not a project. It does not finish when you tighten the last bolt. It sits beside you while you hold a microphone and reminds you of the shape of a friend's hands. The work keeps it from deciding the schedule. We discovered moisture on the interior of a window in the battery room. That means a seal failed. We taped, tacked a plastic layer, and hung a blanket. It is ugly. It works. Ugly and working beats pretty and cold. A listener in Fairbanks sent a tip. Wrap a strip of foil around a radio's ferrite rod to reduce a specific buzz. We tried it on a spare set, and the buzz moved, which told us where the leak was. Thank you, unknown electrician across the water. The schedule will shift tomorrow to save a little more fuel. We will keep top of hour calls but make the mid-hour checks shorter. If you rely on the mid-hour, say so, and we will adjust back. I am getting a scratchy carrier from the north. Could be alert. Could be weather. Holding. Waiting. The carrier is gone. We mark it anyway. A question about maps. If you have none, draw your own. Start with a square for your building, lines for roads, dots for markers you choose. Write distances in steps until you can trade steps for meters. Add notes like wind from east stacks, snow here. This becomes a book of your place. We tried the annex again with ears only at dawn. Nothing. The silence of a sealed closet. We returned to our tasks and to the radio. Cambridge Bay. Taps are stronger. Fuel safe. Child sleeping. Adult tired voice that sounds like gratitude. Rest when the wind whispers. Move when the light is honest. A call from a small community near Rankin Inlet asked about a person with a twisted ankle. Rest, ice if you can, compression with a wrap that is snug but not numb. Elevation, 2 sticks and a cloth can make a brace. Keep weight off if possible for 2 days. Test gently after. Pain makes people rush. Ask the group to slow the day down so the injured does not feel shame for walking carefully. Evening wind built and fell. The generator carried like a drum in another room. I sat in the radio chair and placed my hand on the desk and felt the vibration like a cat purring under the floor. It is easy to imagine the building as an animal we feed and shelter, and that shelters us back. The annex event arrived without sound first, then with too much. Night. The intrusion alarm tripped twice in quick sequence, then went solid. We were at stations in seconds, line clipped, flares ready, air horn in reach. The corridor camera showed a shadow at the threshold, low, like a person sitting. The chain bowed once, twice. The bow had a rhythm like a tired door in wind, which scared me more than a hit would have. Then the metal spoke, a high cry of strain. We braced the inner door with a steel bar into the floor. Alina held the bar. Owen stood with the horn. I stood with the flare at the ready, angled to blind through the small inspection port if the interface failed. It did not fail. The pressure eased. We waited a full minute, then 2, then 5. A sound, small, like fingernails clicking on metal. Then the sound of weight leaving. At 6 minutes, silence. We remained in position for 15 more. Then we backed off by the book, one at a time, door secured again. We moved to the exterior and piled snow against the annex access with the loader until the loader complained and then obeyed. We sprayed a thin layer of water to freeze the pile into a block. It is an old trick. It works. I tell you this in detail, so you can imagine a procedure of your own for your own doors. Decide in daylight how you will behave at night. Night is a bad time to invent a plan. After, we did the kindness of hot drinks and quiet. We did not talk about bravery. We talked about tomorrow's maintenance. We spoke of the fuel line and the squeak in the loader pivot and the loose handle on the vestibule that catches your glove if you are not careful. Top of the hour check. Long-year buy-in report. Copy. The new group across the harbor sent a voice this morning. 2 adults, 2 older teens, moved from cabins inland when fuel ran out. They will approach at noon tomorrow with a white cloth on a pole. You will meet them with 2 visible hands and a plan for quarantine of gear. Good. Anchorage. You shifted to a backup generator. The first one seized. You caught it early by listening for a new rhythm. That saved your bearings. Cambridge Bay. A child cough noted. Warm liquids, steam from a pot in the room if you can manage it. Rest. Avoid smoke. If anyone has a fever that does not ease, report. We took a vote on whether to leave a note for whoever comes after us if we ever depart. Yes. We will write the schedule on the wall. We will write the names on the sheet. We will write the trick about the spring under the floor and the thing about the annex. Sealed. Do not open on a dare. I am thinking now of White Horse streets and the sound of a ferry ramp again. Patience, my mother said. You will see more if you wait. There is a rumor on the bands from farther south that a coordinated airlift is gathering from a base in the far north with long runways. I cannot confirm. If true, it would change how people think about distance. Until we hear a tail number and a time, it is a rumor. We received a microburst of data on a weak burst modem from a ham in Finland. A few lines. Only. A call sign. A grid square. A short phrase. Keep schedule. Band opens after midnight. We copy you. That is enough to keep a person honest. I want to log a teaching from Alina. She says tools are friends with memory. If you put them back in the same place, they remember you and find your hand faster next time. In a dark room, that matters. Tonight we will test a low-power beacon on a different frequency at 10 past the hour. It will send our call sign and a simple message. Eureka listening, schedule top of hour, needs water, heat, shelter, medicine directions. If you copy, answer with your own beacon 5 minutes after. A note for those with no radios but with a chance to signal. Mirrors, flags, chalk on walls, burns in snow, stacked rocks. The old signs still work if enough eyes know to look. We had an aurora tonight that looked like a city on its side again. Green pages turning slow, purple like a bruise on the edge. You can hear the generator under it like a bass note. The world keeps making shows even when the audience is small. Now I will read the names on the battery room door quietly, and then I will fold the paper and put it back. These are not memorials. These are coordinates we circle back to. I speak them once in a steady voice, and I do not share them on air, because some things live better in a room than on a band. Plan for morning. Clear the line to the bay. Check the loader pivot. Retention the belt. Retest the beacon. Listen for alert at 10 past. Call Cambridge Bay at top and bottom. Call Longyearbyen at top. Eat a hot meal. Check the carbon monoxide monitor twice. I will close this segment with instructions for anyone building a shelter from a single large room. Hang blankets to make smaller rooms inside. Put heat at one end and sleep near, but not at that end. Keep exits clear. Avoid placing beds under windows. Make a daily job list and assign names. The list matters as much as the jobs. This is Mason at Eureka. I will stay on frequency for 5 more minutes, then power down to quarter draw for 1 hour to save fuel. I will return at the top of the hour. If you are alone, know that a person here is speaking to you as if you were in the next chair. Holding for calls. Listening. Copy. Faint. Very faint. Could be alert. Could be a skip ghost. I am logging it. Powering down to quarter. I am back. Fuel saved a little. The generator sounds happier when we ask less. People are like that as well. We attempted a scan of VHF local to see if any handhelds are awake nearby. No hits. That is expected up here. But we will keep a routine scan at noon and dusk. A short personal note. A listener in Whitehorse asked what I would do first if I walked into my old apartment right now. I would open the fridge, not to find food, but to see the magnet that holds the ferry ticket stub. Then I would check the radio on the shelf and say the call sign out loud, even if no one answered. We are at a decision point that I want to speak plainly about. Spring will come whether we want it or not. Spring brings melt. Melt brings movement. Infected who wander and stall in deep cold may unfreeze the rhythm of their steps. That changes risk. Our plan is to use these colder weeks to repair, ration, and prepare a departure kit that can go on short notice if the annex or any other factor tips the balance. Departure kit inventory starting list for those who asked. Stove, fuel, pot, cups, spoons, water filter, water bags, rope, tarp, tape, cord, knives, saw, repair kit with needles and wire, first aid, radio, antenna wire, tuner, power pack, maps, compass, headlamps, spare socks, spare gloves, fire starters, candles, lighters, spare glasses if you wear them, notebooks, pencils. Add items that make your group not lose itself. A photo, a small book, the names of people you want to remember. We will leave a loop here if we depart, a simple recorded message about schedule and direction taken. We will not say exact stores. We will say when we left and in which general direction, so that anyone following can make sense of our absence. I hear a carrier again. The tone is similar to the earlier one, a little higher. I am calling. Eureka calling. Do you copy? No voice. The carrier cuts. Returns. Cuts again. If that is a hand on a key, I hear you. Try tapping. 2 for yes. 1 for no. Nothing. We mark it. Longyearbyen reports successful contact with the group of 4. No injuries. 1 has a limp from an old accident. They have fuel in small amounts, food in small amounts, and stories in large supply. The lighthouse remains the meeting point. Anchorage says the block has started nightly story hour, not loud. Just one person talking softly about an ordinary day from before, so the children who are awake do not think the only stories left are about fear. I am stealing that for our station. I will end with a clear set of times. Top of each hour on this band. 10 past on the beacon. 20 past scan for VHF. Bottom of the hour brief check for Cambridge Bay and any small craft near Svalbard. If we must change, I will say it 3 times, over 3 hours, so you can write it and not blame your radio when it was me. This is Mason at Eureka Weather Station. I am still here. Alina is still here. Owen is still here. Chris is on the door in our handwriting. The spring under the floor still talks at night. The wind still writes on the snow. The band still carries voices that refuse to vanish.